Debate at 10, presented by Reliance Jio, powered by Kentaro, RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, Ravin, and Max Bupa Health Insurance. In style partner, Raymond.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Republic Media Network's unrelenting investigation non-stop has been going on for about 24 to 36 hours now into the Tahir Hussain case, and the breaking news is that it forced Arvind Kejriwal to act, and under pressure, the Aam Aadmi Party sort of, I have been told, suspended its top leader, Tahir Hussain, right-hand man of Arvind Kejriwal, pending police inquiry. But this is not enough. He's only been suspended. Tahir Hussain has been slapped with a murder case in connection with the 26-year-old Intelligence Bureau official Ankit Sharma's murder. The Republic Media Network has been at the forefront of the exposés. And it's interesting that this happened within 40 minutes of our debate this evening, where earlier today, Arvind Kejriwal had taken an extremely strong position and refused to take any action against his right-hand man. Today, he's had to suspend him. That's the information that we have right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll come back to that later. But before that, viewers, to our next debate. Gross misreporting. Massive misreporting by sections of the Lutyens media, Western media, on the violent communal clashes in Northeast Delhi is helping the global slander campaign against our country. Tonight, I will put 6 facts on the table to counter their lopsided bunch of lies. Let's debate.
Uniformed personnel are leading marches across riot-torn areas of northeast Delhi. There's an uneasy calm on the streets, but normalcy is slowly returning. There has been more misreporting than reporting on the violence in Delhi. For instance, some Lutyens media outlets have repeatedly called communal clashes a pogrom against Muslims. They've demonized the Delhi police and have blacked out videos like these which show how cops rescued people. And here's what they won't tell you the way it should be told. Victims in Delhi are from both communities.
ये फायरिंग हो रही है, ये करदमपुरी से फायरिंग हो रही है लगातार.
Blockade of roads cannot be glorified as a revolution. The murder-accused Aam Aadmi Party leader let a riot factory run out of his office. Zero reporting on what triggered the violence. Gross misreporting on casualty figures. Unable to accept the truth about gun-wielding writer Shah Rukh's identity. And downplaying the Aam Aadmi Party's link to Shaheen Bagh gunman Kapil Gujjar. And this tweet by Democrat and US presidential candidate Bernie Sanders is a result of their agenda-driven narrative. Let's bust the global anti-India fake news factory tonight. Let's debate.
Michael Kugelman. But before I go to him tonight, let me ask Francois Guatia, who's on the debate tonight with Sambit Patra, Kartikeya Tanna, Sushant Sareen, Ashish Khaitan, Syed Asad Abbas and Mushtaq Sikandar. I don't know if Michael is on the line yet. My question is that, Michael, ignoramuses like Bernie Sanders say that there are widespread anti-Muslim riots all across India. And the fact is, there is no riots all across India, A. B, there have been clashes that are communal. It is localized and extremely localized in a small part of Delhi. And 2, Kartikeya Tanna joins us from Miami and Michael from Washington. Kartikeya, I want you to come into the debate with Michael at the start. It's not anti-Muslim, for God's sake.
Yes,
one of the biggest perpetrators of the violence, the man leading the greatest violence, the man who has been suspended from the primary membership of a political party, is a Muslim, for God's sake. But that doesn't matter. I'm not saying he's a Muslim. Large parts of the riots were led by people who were Muslims, as well as people who were from the other community, which are Hindus. It is a communal clash. A, it's not a pogrom. B, it's not anti-Muslim.
It's not.
I mean, why would I mean, I know I know that he doesn't know his facts. I know he's irrelevant. I know that he's desperate because he may be not even getting the nomination. But to feed lies, you know, these Bernie Sanders, George Soros kind of global ignoramuses, Michael, do they not embarrass themselves by putting this kind of stuff out? Like your rags in your country, like the Washington Post and the New York Times, don't know anything about this country. MSNBC, 200 million Indian Muslims will be disenfranchised. How silly. 200 million Indian Muslims, not one Indian Muslim, not one, will be disenfranchised. Either Americans don't know English, which is a possibility, because I think Americans have great difficulty in the correct use of the English language. But the word disenfranchise communicates a level of lack of intelligence which is absolutely shocking. Now, it's not lack of intelligence. I think it's deliberate. So, Karthik, I want you to begin the debate.
Yes.
Why do you think this is happening?
Well,
what if I were to say that all Jews in the United States of America will be disenfranchised?
Well,
I think Americans would go crazy.
Yes. I just want to, Arnab, preface this debate with one warning sign to those who still read Western news reports. This is an informational war launched by the Western media, and I'm afraid we haven't seen the peak of falsehoods and outright lies. The majority of opinion pushers on retainer by these Western outlets have never quite appreciated India coming into its own and being a global force to reckon with, even during Congress Party's rule. Now, Mr. Modi's ascent to power increased the deprecation multifold. And President Trump recently had a successful visit to India, and his bonhomie with our Prime Minister is palpably visible. As much as the Western media hates India's growth story, it personally hates Mr. Trump even more. And therefore, these Western media outlets have become shelter homes for disgraced Indian journalists, those who are caught on tape fixing ministries, those who have been squarely rejected not only by the right-minded majority of Indians, but by esteemed institutions such as the Supreme Court for their indulgence in fiction and sensation. They may sleep at night on a bed softened by the US dollar or the British pound, but their lack of integrity and honesty is demonetizing their conscience. The Western media will do itself a huge favor if it stops getting its facts from the chor bazaar of Indian journalism.
Well, that's a very strong counter. I'd put the ball in Michael Kugelman's court. I know of a rag called the New York Times. I mean, I haven't seen a greater embarrassment than this publication. This publication says, witnesses said police fired at Muslim crowds and shielded Hindu rioters. Unnamed witnesses. The fact is, Michael, that today a head constable of the Delhi police has been attacked and killed. An official of the Intelligence Bureau has been butchered and stabbed 400 times. And the man responsible for this ghastly act is a leader of a political party who happens to be a Muslim. You understand? Now, I want to know whether the New York Times has a corrigendum policy in your view. What is your view? Why would they put these lies out with so much confidence about the world's largest democracy? What is their agenda?
So, thank you for having me. The media outlets that you are describing are perfectly reputable. They are doing their job. They are not doing anything fake. Certainly, one could question the angles that they choose to emphasize. certainly it's true that the emphasis from these major outlets has been on the abuses visited upon the Muslim community, for sure. But I would argue...
Is there no respect for the facts? No, is there no respect for the facts, Michael? I mean, are American people not going to ask these publications? There is no respect for the facts. What if I were to report in this manner about the United States of America? In fact, I have a damn good reason, I think. We better show the United States, the race-ridden, the hate-ridden country called the United States of America, torn apart by race, by divisions, by political differences, the most polarized country in the world. I think it's time that we put a mirror to these people, because it's irresponsible. Is there no code of ethics, for example? I mean, I wonder whether in America these rags are put to any question. They are encouraging.
What you call?
No, my question is, would they be put to question for the gross violation of ethics that they are doing out here? Karthikeya follows up.
They do call them into question when they report on American news stories, but they do not call them into question when it's India. For India, everything is fair game. And that's the problem with the Western media outlets. And they get information from, as I said, the chore bazaar of Indian journalism, which is very unfortunate. But again, like I said, the informational war has just begun, and we haven't even reached the peak of falsehoods yet.
Yeah, I think there will be a lot more, unfortunately. Yes, Michael?
I mean, to be quite frank, I'm not sure where this is coming from. My view is that these Western media outlets you're talking about, and also Indian media outlets, are out there on the ground interviewing people who are being affected by these riots. They are talking to Hindus, to Muslims, to members of law enforcement. So I'm not sure about the suggestion.
Yes, it's both sides. So it's not a pogrom.
Particular source.
No. My question is, please listen to me, Michael, can I tell you one thing tonight? These organizations will be relics very soon in the future. But the Washington Post, I'm just curious to know, since you are in Washington and I'm not, this particular venomous outlet called the Washington Post has 7 principles of conduct. The first principle is, and I quote, the first mission of a newspaper, Sushant, they say, is to tell the truth as nearly as the truth may be ascertained. Now, the Washington Post violates its very first principle when it publishes news like, criticism of police grows after mob violence kills more than 30 in India's national capital, but has nothing on the death of head constable Ratan Lal and over 70 injured policemen. So it conveniently, you're saying that they spin the facts. It's not spinning of the facts, Sushant.
Obviously,
this is falsification of the facts.
Just give me a minute and a half. Just give me a minute and a half, and I'll tell you how this works. Let's go back. I'm going back 50 years, 1971. Look at the role the BBC played initially. They supported the Pakistanis completely, simply because the Pakistanis were the favorite boys of the Brits and the Americans those days. And the BBC, being a typical lapdog of the establishment, supported the Pakistanis completely. Mrs. Gandhi threw them out. When the war was coming, the BBC literally begged to come back into India. Okay, and then their coverage completely changed. Now look at the BBC South Asia Bureau Chief out here, a woman by the name of Sam Kareem. Look at the kind of stuff she has done right from the time when the abrogation of 370 took place to the riots. One-sided narrative that the Muslims are being tortured, butchered, whatever in India. One-sided narrative, okay? Now, look at the Wall Street Journal.
Selective.
The IB officer who was butchered.
Let him complete.
One second. Let me just say the whole thing. Let me complete. Then you say what you have to say. Let me complete when you have. When it's your turn, you say what you have to say. So look at this Wall Street Journal. This gentleman Ankit Sharma, who's killed, the IB officer. They say that he was killed by the Hindus. Wall Street Journal has actually reported that. Can you believe this? Now, my question is to my government. Here is this palpably false reporting happening by the Wall Street Journal.
Ask Sambit, come on.
What action has the government of India taken
ask Sambit Patra tonight.
Who are trying to peddle
Good point, Sushant. Good point. Good point. Ask Sambit Patra tonight.
Number three, there are these brown coolies Arnab, there are these brown coolies, and the pun on the word brown is intended. There are these brown coolies who work in various universities in America who, because of their own self-preservation, write this kind of nonsense all the time. There is no balance, there is no accuracy in their reportage. And they jump to conclusions because they have to suck up to a certain ideology, certain way of thinking. They deny people who follow an alternate point any platform, but they will give it to people who toe their line. So that is another factor. Then words are important, right? Now there is this fellow by the name of Hussain Haidari. The guy is such a coward, he tweets, words are important, Hindu terrorist, Hindu terrorist, Hindu terrorist. Then when the flag comes, he deletes it. This same man says that this is Hindu-sponsored state terrorism and state-sponsored Hindu terrorism. Now, these are the kind of people, and then he goes into poetry, waxing lyrical, how he's a Hindustani Mussalman, and how this is part of a syncretic culture. This is what this guy does. Words are important. So when you use the word pogrom, and then a professor in the university, in one of the universities, Johns Hopkins, apparently an economics professor, who, you know, economists normally look at data. They don't go after one sample and then reach a conclusion. This man takes a clip and says that this is what has been done by the Hindus. I am not saying that the Hindus have not done what they have done, but every side is guilty in what has happened over the last 3-4 days. So why is there not the balance which should be there? And then the problem comes with the government of Mr. Modi. Because Mr. Modi realized that Lutyens media doesn't count for anything. Just last point,
is there a feeling?
Last point.
No, can I ask you a question?
He realized that the Lutyens media does not count for anything.
Is there a feeling?
What he did not understand is how the Lutyens media colors the worldwide narrative on India.
Understood.
And he has been remiss in being able to address that issue.
You see, I make a point
of what is happening now. But in which,
I make a point here. I truly believe.
Please tell me.
No, I truly believe, and I truly believe Francois is on the debate. Francois, welcome to my program. You see, Francois, in your view, is there a feeling
Thank you very much.
among these people in the Western media that they can mess around with the truth in one of the most powerful countries in the world, the largest democracy, one of the world's largest markets, one of the most influential economies, right? Is there a feeling that you can simply mess around in India and get away with it? You see, you can mess around with your own country. If you want to mess around with India, you must be made to pay a price for it.
Right.
They can't say truth be damned when it comes to India.
Right.
What do you think, Francois?
Right. But I think it's not as simple as that. You know, most Western correspondents who arrive in Delhi are good-willing, but the first input is a very negative Indian media. You know, the problem is that in Delhi, they get the input from the diplomats, from the Western media, and that is a very negative input. So even when they come with a goodwill, with an aspiration to understand India, their first input is very negative. Secondly, the BJP government's communication is very bad. I'm sorry to say, because I'm a supporter of this government. I think Mr. Modi is a great prime minister, but their communication is extremely bad. They don't explain very well what they're going to do. They didn't explain Article 370. They didn't explain properly CAA. So bad communication. The third thing is that Hindus are still a huge majority. There's 1 billion Hindus in this world, one of the most educated, affluent community, and they take things lying down. They do not react. They do not stand for their own. So as a result, the Western media gets away with speaking so much rubbish. I'm appalled. I'm ashamed as a Westerner who's lived in this wonderful country for 50 years, this very tolerant country that has accepted every persecuted community in the world. Even the Ahmadi Muslims, they're persecuted in Pakistan, persecuted in Bangladesh, persecuted in other countries. But they came to India. One of the richest men in the world is an Ahmadi Muslim. And he says, I'm grateful to the Hindus. You know, the boss of YPro, Mr. Premji, Aziz Premji. Now, I'm ashamed that the Western media paints India in such a poor manner. You know, I was in Kashmir. I witnessed the exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits. Today, the Kashmiri Muslims are made as martyrs, but I saw them start an armed fight against the Indian government. I was there when they took up arms and chased 400,000 innocent Hindus. I was there.
Tell me one thing.
Today, the Western media supported them as persecuted.
Tell me something, Sambit. Are you scared of BBC and Al Jazeera? That when they violate the code of ethics, when they put out, no, you can be honest with me. If you have other compulsions, you can't take action on Al Jazeera. When they violate facts, they violate all singular code of ethics. They call it journalistic liberty. But what they're essentially doing is completely contorting the truth. The BBC would not have been able to get away with such lies in the United Kingdom, let me tell you. They have violated the basic code of ethics 2019, which is that trust is the foundation. They are neither independent, nor impartial, nor honest. They are prejudiced and dishonest. They have reports on how people were attacked by a Hindu mob. The BBC, I'm naming them. Sushant, you know that. But they have nothing in detail on how the Bhim army called for mobilization, which led to instigation.
What are you talking about?
Right.
Yes, yes, Sushant?
I'll answer that.
What were you saying? I missed out.
I am saying the Western media, which claims to be, you know, really fact-based, entirely very analytical and all of that. What happened during the Iraq war? It was they created the entire climate.
They lied.
Both the British
they lied
and the
about
American
the WMD.
media, all
we all
these
know.
so-called New York Times and WAPOs, they lied.
They lied.
They lied.
They blatantly,
they
openly
lied.
Yeah, yeah.
And they never apologized for it.
No, but my
and
fact
they got
is
millions of
no,
people
but Sushant,
killed. And then they claim
but Sushant, you make a point. No, but Sushant, I like the point you made earlier. And my point is, you can lie about your country. But when you are trying to lie in my country and instigating the situation, because even people in India will read what Al Jazeera and BBC put out, you violate your own code of conduct in your country. But when you do it in mine, I will ask my government, Sambit Patra, why you are not taking any action on them? Are you negotiating with them?
In fact, a number of questions that have come up in this debate. Give me a few seconds. Thank you for having me, Mr. Goswami. Number one, as far as whether the BJP has right communication skills or not, I would say, look, you can wake up a man who is sleeping, but you cannot wake up a man who is acting to be asleep. And remember, as far as this Western media is concerned, only a couple of months ago, one of the headlines in one of the most important Western media was Al-Baghdadi. Al-Baghdadi, a great scholar, has passed away, as if he died of a heart attack while he was asleep. And in fact, the world was mourning Al-Baghdadi's death. So thanks to the social media, the people today know what the truth is. As far as this disinformation and misinformation is concerned, remember, disinformation is duping and misinformation is tricking. And in fact, since years altogether, what this Western media has been doing is duping and tricking us. But I have no complaints from them. I don't have a complaint about the baseless bickering corporation that is BBC. I don't have a competition. I don't have a complaint with the Washington Post. They literally tend to wash the truth a ton to an extent that the truth loses all its sheen. I don't have a complaint of the Washington Post. I don't even complain about the NDTP, that is the New Delhi to Parliament Lutyens media, the way they report, and they have a rubbish reporting about a couple of days ago. They had one where they literally tried to prove that this Shahrukh, the gun-wielding man, Shahrukh was no one other than Anurag Mishra.
Shame.
You know, they wanted to say that he was Anurag Mishra. And just imagine, that was rubbish reporting, rubbish reporting. It's rubbish reporting. And ironically, there are people who want rubbish to be awarded, you know, rubbish reporting to be awarded. But I have complained about the JJs. The JJs with mojo. JJs mean Jaichand journalists in India. Can I say something about the BBC? Why should I complain about BBCs and Washington Post? Just a second, sir. Why should I complain about BBCs and Washington Post when we have JJs with mojos in India? We have Jaichand journalists who eat here and who complain about here, who don't report, in fact, who don't. He was right, absolutely right, that they are the journalists of Chor Bazaar. They were benefiting from the system, and suddenly they have ceased. That benefit has ceased, and that's the reason as to why these Radia tape journalists, they have taken against their own country. As far as Bernie Sanders is concerned, I would just say this saying of Chris Jammy for him. It's okay to be honest about not knowing. It's okay to be honest about not knowing rather than spreading falsehood. While it is often said that honesty is the best policy, silence is the second best policy. And how I hope Bernie Sanders should have at least followed, because I don't expect the first policy.
But I have a very serious question. Ashish Khaitan has just returned after an academic stint in the United Kingdom. So he would have got some exposure of how things work in the UK. Karthikeya, every time,
yes,
I'll tell you one thing, every time I take a position, very strongly for India and against Pakistan, there have been occasions when I have been pulled up by the Ofcom, which is the regulatory body in the United Kingdom. This is what happens. And in fact, in one case, an earlier organization I worked for went on record to protect itself by saying that, oh, we didn't do anything. He's the bad guy. He spoke against Pakistan.
Right.
I will not name the organization, everyone would guess. My question is this. In the BBC, I raise Ofcom Rule 5.1, due accuracy and presented with due impartiality, Ashish. The BBC says, in a signed piece by its India correspondent, that Delhi violence is like the Gujarat riots. It's a very, very sweeping statement. It is equating to entirely unrelated incidents and taking gross exception to the facts out here. This is an open violation of Ofcom Rule 5.1.
Yeah.
My question is, Ashish, would BBC have been able to get away with this in the UK?
Perhaps not. So, Arnab, you're absolutely right that because I have been also scanning Western media, BBC, New York Times, Washington Post, and 3 or 4 things just stand out with regard to their reportage on Delhi riots. One, many of them have been extremely, extremely lazy and callous with facts. 2,
exactly.
They have built a perception about the current Indian dispensation. And within that, whatever they deem is fits that perception or further reinforces that perception or their bias, they only report that or they give a spin to that. And 3,
right.
Extremely, extremely one-sided, because it is one thing to give a spin to facts, but it is another thing to altogether omit, completely erase the other side of the story, which is the number of policemen who have been injured, the number of policemen who have been killed, which is 1 IB intelligence officer, another constable, the number of members of the majority community who have also been killed and their establishments destroyed, their shops burned down, and
They
so on.
say...
But having said that,
you've been a
one
journalist.
thing that I would like to point out.
Okay, I'm sorry, so sorry to interrupt you, Ashish. But I just so sorry to interrupt you. But you've been a journalist for a long time and a damn good one at that. 1 second. Question is, Ashish.
Yeah.
They are saying we are not wrong with the facts, but this is our emphasis on certain facts and lack of emphasis on some other facts. They say we are not lying. We are just giving it a spin. And that falls within the realm of journalistic license. Do you agree with that, Ashish?
Arnab, just like
Let Ashish take that.
has taken an exit.
No journalist worth his salt, no journalist. So, can I just say this? Suppose 10 people have died, and you are saying that as a journalist, I am only going to highlight the story of 5 people who have died, and completely erase, omit, disregard the other 5 people's story because I want to lay emphasis on the first 5. On what basis?
Exactly.
Individuals have died.
On what basis?
Shops and establishments have been looted.
Right.
Houses have been burnt down. Human beings have died. Human beings have died. Everybody has suffered. But there's one thing that I would like to add, Arnab, which I wanted to add in my previous intervention, was that initially when Narendra Modi ji took over as the Prime Minister of India in 2014, the same Western media was quite euphoric about India, about the Prime Minister. This perception has built over the last 1.5 years, especially over the last 6 months. So there is also an element of introspection that is required on part of the current ruling dispensation. That why, whether it's lack of communication, whether it's lack of putting out your facts correctly,
there is a reason for it, Ashish.
Because there have been very loose comments and irresponsible comments made by certain peripheral leaders within the BJP dispensation. Because Prime Minister has always maintained a very elevated discourse. He always speaks in terms of inclusiveness, communal harmony, national unity. But there have been irresponsible comments, and the Honorable Home Minister Amit Shah ji has also recently acknowledged that irresponsible comments were made during the election campaign by certain BJP leaders.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right, Ashish. Ashish, thank you for bringing this balanced view. But let me tell you this. The UK might have exited from Europe, in Brexit. I think BBC has exited from facts and balance.
It's so shameful.
The greatest outrage from one side was about a speech by someone which was aimed at just saying that the roads need to be cleared of the protest. There was the greatest outrage about that, and that led to a conclusion that this was a pogrom, this was an anti-Muslim violence directed at Muslims. But the greatest silence from that same side was about a murder and several murders. So when they talk about pogrom and when they talk about anti-Muslim violence, what they don't understand is that this is a riot, and the selective reporting that Ashish was talking about is something that converts what is an unfortunate, indeed unfortunate sectarian riot into this one.
I have another question tonight.
Painted in all over media.
I have another question tonight which comes to my mind, Sushant. Michael Kugelman, you wish to say something. Can I follow up with a question to you if you don't mind? A thought comes to my mind. And believe me, I'm being extremely objective about this. Al Jazeera. First of all, I truly believe that an organization that has reported so many lies so consistently should fold up. It may have all the money in the world, but honestly, it's embarrassing. My question would be, Sushant, I have a question for Al Jazeera. And would the Al Jazeera minders be so kind to answer my question, maybe in their next program? Al Jazeera is based in Qatar. There is no reporting of the massive human rights violations and abuse in Qatar on Al Jazeera. In fact, Sambit, you'll be amazed to know that Al Jazeera, which is largely staffed by retired BBC hands, in April last year, migrant workers building new football stadiums in Qatar had staged strong protests against repeated human rights abuses and oppressive policies of the government in Qatar. They took to the streets. They said, we are being not paid. Our wages are overdue. We are living in Qatar in absolutely inhuman conditions. We are being treated like animals. People were angry. This was for the FIFA World Cup 2022 in Qatar. And I don't think there was any investigative report on Al Jazeera about that, Sushant, Sambit. Syed? What happens, Al Jazeera? What happens? I believe that what is sauce for the goose should be sauce for the gander. In other words, you want to preach to the world, what about what's happening where you're operating from? Al Jazeera's Twitter handle, incidentally, Sushant, this is very fascinating, has just 11 tweets mentioning Qatar since 2013. Do you realize that? It's incredible hypocrisy. Incredible, insufferable hypocrisy,
look,
Michael. Insufferable.
But Arnab, where was the doubt in that?
No, I'm just highlighting
Arnab,
it.
look,
We knew it, but
thing.
it's just, it's
the
abominable.
Qataris have done the smart thing.
It's just crossed all limits.
No.
And these people have programs on media.
What the Qataris have done, you have to understand what the Qataris have done. What they have done is they've brought in the white people to work as their coolies. And because when the white man says something, it's supposed to be much more credible.
Michael!
But Al Jazeera does the same kind of propaganda which Qatar wants to
Michael,
do,
and
right?
the same in
It's
US,
the same
Michael.
thing like the press TV of Iran or any of these other
Michael,
TVs.
you see, we in India are very,
China.
very tolerant, but we are also gifted with a great quality in India of observation. May I report to you my observation on the rag called the Washington Post? Caught running a fake story against Trump, alleging that the Trump administration systematically denied passports to Latin Americans along the border, accusing them of using fraudulent birth certificates, which was proven to be false by the State Department figures. I'm just giving you an example of the inherent bias. You believe, Michael, these groups are not going to be questioned? I think they'll be questioned globally. And I can predict to you that this fake media will be replaced by a true global media, perhaps from India, and certainly from the Asian continent. I think people in America would welcome that.
So, these outlets that you've been discussing and have breaking new records for subscription levels. They continue to be quite popular among a certain type of constituency here. But certainly, the U.S., like India, is a polarized place. Certainly, there are many people, including President Trump, who feel that the Washington Post, and CNN, the New York Times...
No, I'm not talking about opinion, Michael. I am talking about something held sacred, facts. I'm not talking of whether Trump likes X, Y, Z. I couldn't give a damn, to be honest. Do what you want in the crevices of American politics. But, listen, cannot mess around with India. That's all. I'm saying tonight, you protect your interest. Do I not have a right, Michael, to protect national interest in India? I protect my interest.
Certainly you do, but you want to talk about facts.
Don't we have that
right?
right?
There has been community
Pardon me?
which Hindus and Muslims have been killed.
What Hindus and Muslims?
The media that you've been describing.
What Hindus and Muslims, Michael? What are you saying? Michael.
And also the fact, the reality is that Hindu mosques have been going after Muslims.
No. Oh God, will you understand, Michael? Michael, listen, you live in an echo chamber. You live clearly in an echo chamber. You have been fed certain information by rags. And unfortunately for you, I'm so upset that you have digested the facts without asking a single question. You ought to be careful. You ought to be more critical. You ought to be more observant of the facts. Please do not take... I'm telling you today, you are a classic example, Michael, of an individual. I don't doubt your intentions, but you've been brainwashed by rags. And look at you,
Arnab,
a thinking individual who is condemned to repeat those facts on my program, those fake facts on my program. See, this is the battle against fake news, Michael. You should be more considerate to yourself. And please stop accumulating a mountain of fake facts. You should be careful. I care for you, and therefore I'm saying that. Sushant is saying something. Sushant and Sambit are also on the debate tonight.
Listen, here is the thing. The superciliousness of the West, that they know what is best and they know everything. I have repeated this earlier and I will repeat it again on your show. 16 odd British journalists from the top papers in Britain came to my organization, and they were very agitated about the CAA, and they actually thought Muslims are being disenfranchised. Why did they think that? Not one of those guys, not one person had read the law. They had not read the law, but they had formed an opinion about the law.
So true.
They didn't understand the context, they didn't understand the text, but they had an opinion. And when it was corrected, there were embarrassed looks all around.
Yes,
they never read it. And what they were doing is that they were getting their brown coolies to write for them. And that is when they were forming their opinion.
Look at Michael saying Hindu mobs are attacking Muslims and vice versa. This is...
Mr.
You don't understand the complexities of the issue, and yet you want to draw your clickbaitish headlines. The problem with these desperados also, maybe they are unpopular, maybe nobody reads them, but to get clickbaitish headlines and spread fake news, I wonder why responsible search engines don't take any action against them. Sambit is on the debate. Sambit.
Arnab, I agree.
Mr. Goswami, with all due respect to Michael, I was hearing...
Michael responding, Sambit to Michael, go on.
I have done my bachelor's in journalism.
Yeah, the problem with Michael is sitting somewhere in Mars, he wants to talk about Chand Bagh. आप मंगल ग्रह में बैठ के चांद बाग को कहां से जान पाएंगे? How would you know the demography as to what happened in Chand Bagh? Where is Chand Bagh? And you are reporting about Chand Bagh sitting somewhere else. You have to understand. I remember there is this journalist from a foreign paper who reported that, well, yes, there was a mosque which has been burned, while the Delhi police countered it by saying that no mosque has been burned. So sitting somewhere in US or in UK, you are trying to propagate hatred in India.
I think the issue...
Number two, they have the same template.
I think the issue is, someone told me, Sambit, it is to do with the death of the media industry in the United States, that the more clickbaitish false news they publish from India, it is to do... you must understand the economics of it. These organizations are dying. They are print organizations. The more lies and clickbaitish headlines they put about India, it gets them quote-unquote virality and traffic. They are therefore traders in fake news. There is a market economics that is guiding this. We cannot be not cognizant of that of that financial desperation of these organizations. Am I wrong, Karthik? We are observers of the media industry.
No, but you have to understand one thing, Mr. Goswami. Just a second,
And
Karthik. You have to understand one thing, Mr. Goswami. As far as this left liberal reporters are concerned, none of them show me an article about the atrocities against the Muslims in Uyghur China.
This has been a fascinating debate. I know I'm getting so much response from the audiences. I feel today something has snapped tonight from the response of the viewers. I feel today the anger is beginning to come out. I promise to revisit this. But before that, I must end with one more fake news story that I need to bust tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, one more fake news story that